I'm Greg Giuliano. I'm an executive coach, organizational change consultant, and author. I believe leaders have the power to shape the future and change people's lives. I also believe people who challenge the status quo and go beyond usual and ordinary are rare. They're willing to go to the edge and push farther, over and over again. When I find these ultra leaders, I love to talk with them. In each episode, I talk with ultra leaders to learn how they do what they do and how they keep growing as leaders. I promise you a full dose of ultra leadership from other ultra leaders just like you in every conversation. We're at the edge of another episode. Let's jump in. Welcome to another episode of Ultra Leadership. My guest today is Hussein Al-Baiaty, and I asked Hussein to join me today because we are turning the tables a little bit. Host Hussein is going to be asking me some questions about my new book, which came out just a couple of days ago, Coaching for a Change, How to Engage, Empower, and Activate People. But let me tell you a little bit about Hussein before we jump in, because his story is inspiring, and I'll let him tell you how we met. But meeting him was just a great moment for me, and it continues to be a great thing to know Hussein. I find his story to be inspiring. He and his family were forced to flee his home country of Iraq when he was just a small boy. And before coming to the U.S., he and his family actually lived in a refugee camp where it was day-to-day struggle, and he learned powerful lessons in resilience and perseverance from his parents. They eventually found their way to Portland, Oregon, lucky for us, where he grew up and became an entrepreneur and built $1 million printing business and created Refutees. And I'll let him tell you a little bit about Refutees. But Refutees is a way to give back to refugees through t-shirts and collaboration. He's worked with school districts and brands ranging from your local pizza joint to Nike. He was named Oregon's Immigrant of the Year in 2018 and the Portland Trail Blazers Hero of the Month in 2021. After his father passed away, Hussein was reminded that time is precious, and he wanted to use his story to inspire and motivate others through speaking and coaching and writing. In 2020, he sold his company and wrote a best-selling book, The Art of Resilience, The Refugee State of Mind. And it's available wherever you get your books, and I encourage you to go and get a copy of it. He left the rain, and now he lives in Arizona with his wife and his dog Rose, and he is now a nationally known speaker. And he goes out and he talks with young leaders on how to embrace resilience. And he's turned his experience in publishing into his newest endeavor, Rising Authors, an invite-only platform designed to empower authors at every stage of their writing journey, helping them build their brands online and grow their audiences organically. He's an amazing, I'm going to say young man, because he's a lot younger than I am, but he's an amazing man, and his story is truly inspiring, and I'm lucky to have met him, and I'm glad he's here today. Hi, Hussein.
Greg, come on, man. What a great intro, brother. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
It's meeting people like you that has definitely shaped my own leadership style, my own work, and so much. I do have a story to share, though, before we get into it. Yeah. First of all, I'm very honored to get the privilege to interview you today, man. I love hosting my own podcast, but hopping on yours and swapping. Hopefully, I could do this a little bit of justice. But Greg, before we jump in, I do want to share with the audience a really quick story of how we met. And it was back when I was selling t-shirts out of that van where we met. And we were at, I believe, the Mississippi State Fair or
Montevilla.
Montevilla, that's right.
Street Fair.
So you remember it better than I do, because I was hustling from street fair to street fair.
You were.
And I was selling those Refutees to try to bring awareness to the social cause, of course, but also get out there, meet people, and meet individuals that, again, I can at least inspire or motivate, but then sometimes the tables are turned where people connect me to opportunities. And that was my way. That was my way of getting involved in that community and doing something with my print shop that at the time, I didn't think other print shops were doing. And so in trying to differentiate myself, I met you. And you came up, you bought some t-shirts, and, just like everybody else, like we have a little chat, we'd laugh a little, buy some t-shirts, great. But what's cool is a few years later, after I sold my shop and got into the publishing world and marketing and all that stuff, I was working for this amazing company at the time. And you come on because it was all virtual. Of course you remember this. And one of the guys, I look over and he's wearing my t-shirt. And I'm like, that looks familiar. And I was like, hey man, where'd you get your t-shirt? He's like, you sold it to me. You don't remember? And I was like, I don't. So it was such a cool moment for me because anytime anyone wears those t-shirts, it always felt like I was being seen. I felt like my community of refugees and immigrants, people around Portland, Oregon, were being seen, heard, and felt. And it meant that we were supported. And there was just something about that. And I think, growing up in a country where, I get the privilege of going to school, learning English, all of these things, there are other people who are still kind of coming in who don't know English, who don't know their way around, for me, my goal was just to simply remind people that we're all from somewhere. All of our parents or maybe even grandparents or great-grandparents have arrived here in some way, shape, or form. That is unless, of course, you're a native, which I love and respect. And so, with that, it was just one of those reminders. And I'm so grateful that you wore that shirt that day because it made us connect on a deeper level. And from there, man, I asked you a few times to come out and meet me and give me a coaching lesson. There was a moment in time where I was in flux of like, hey, man, I got all these skills and abilities and I've done all these things, but what do I do next? And you were such an encouraging force in that, like, man, you got to do coaching. You got to be consulting. You got to go out there and speak and share your message. It's very powerful. And you validated my voice, man. And I just want to say thank you. And, beyond that, you were one of the first people I reached out to when I established Rising Authors. And I asked you, I was like, hey, man, do you need support with your online presence and all that stuff? And sure enough, you gave me a shot in helping you and supporting you. And man, I don't know how to thank you, brother. Seriously, it means so much. So I just want to put that out in front before I get into this interview. But I just want to say that you are a true embodiment of the leader and character that you share with everyone. And I've had firsthand experience now for over several years getting to work with you. Your coaching, like this is the book, what your book is about. You don't just talk about this stuff. You truly, truly embody it. And so I'm excited to jump into this, man.
Well, thanks, man.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
You're fun to hang with and you're easy to coach because you're just on fire. You have something that you want to do. And so you're incredibly coachable. And so you're like a coach's dream. It's like,
oh, man.
And you immediately turn any inquiry or advice into action and you make it real. So, okay.
Thank you, brother. Yeah. No, this
all right,
is good,
everybody
man.
knows we have a mutual admiration society.
Yeah, we do. All right, y'all. So this is good, man. I'm excited to get into this. And Greg, there's a moment. So as I was reading your new book, you mentioned a pivotal moment when you shifted from command and control leadership to a coaching mindset. Could you share that story and how it reshaped your approach?
Yeah, and this was early on. So I don't like being told what to do. I never have liked being told what to do. But in a command and control environment, that's what you do. You're telling people what to do. And I had an experience early in my career where I hadn't been given any formal training or education on being a leader of a team in an organization. I just went with what I had experienced. And so because my boss always just told me what to do and it was my job to do it, I had somebody on my team where I told him what to do and he was supposed to do it and he didn't want to do it. Then I went all tough guy, dug in, I'm their boss. And within a month or so, he quit. He voted with his feet. He's like, I'm not working for this guy. And it was just a wake up call for me as I was reflecting on it. It's like, he was a really good guy, talented, and he just disagreed with me on what I was saying here, you got to do this. And in hindsight, I would have behaved differently. I don't blame him for quitting. I would have quit too. And I learned that style that I had grown up in has a shelf life, and most of us don't like it. And so there had to be a better way. How do we, because again, at the end of the day, we're just human beings trying to do something, participate in work that we find meaningful so we can take care of our families, right? So how do we make the experience for our people one that enables them, encourages them to engage more, to stay engaged, and to feel empowered and to be activated? So the way that showed up was completely disengaging, completely disempowering. And all it did was activate this guy's desire to not work for me anymore. And so I wanted to flip that. And so that began okay, what does that look like? What does flipping it look like? And over the years, coming to realize that the servant leadership that manifests as the leader, as a coach, makes to me a lot more sense, and it's more sustainable, and it does more to help people engage. It's more empowering, and it's more activating, and that people feel, have that sense of, empowerment and ownership over their situation. And so that was the moment many, many years ago where I realized, wow, this old way doesn't work, at least not for me. And I've found out over the years that it doesn't work for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I think what's powerful is that when you go into, specific coaching situations with people that you work with, you notice the behavior that you once had, right? The behaviors and that's what makes your experience so rich. They're like, man, look, I'm telling you, I used to be like this, or I thought like this, or I had those tendencies. Here are the things that I did to ensure that instead of repelling people, I attract people, all these components that we will get into here a little bit further. But I love that, man. But look, let's be honest here. All of us have someone that we look up to. All of us have, for me, it's many people, of course, but predominantly my father for a variety of reasons. But you did mention someone that I thought was really cool after I did some research about him as well. You dedicated your book to Steve Shipley. Yeah. Call him a mentor and a friend who impacted you deeply. And this is crucial because I feel like as coaches, as mentors, as leaders in whatever industry we're in, we always look up to the ones that make an impact on us. They change the way we see the world, maybe even see ourselves. I think that's really important. Could you share a little bit about how Steve helped you reshape your perspective?
Yeah, he was an awesome human being. I miss him every day. So I met Steve actually through my brother-in-law, who's also a Steve. And I was talking with my brother-in-law about wanting to change careers. And I'd become kind of stuck. I think I was in private practice at that point, but I knew that there was something else to do. Private practice was becoming kind of like a small hamster wheel of that. People brought me their kid or their spouse or whoever and said, fix this person. And so I felt like I was in a routine that I thought, there's got to be something more to this. And I had just found out about the world of coaching and consulting. And so I wanted to explore that. So my brother-in-law, Steve, said, I want you to meet Steve. I want you to meet Duke. So he set it up for me to meet Duke. And I went and saw Duke and I told him what I thought I wanted to do. And he said, I'll be glad to help you, offer any advice. And he said, but I want to know that you're serious about this. And so one of the first things he did, his first coaching assignment was, okay, you need to dress for this part. So if you're serious about this, I want you to go out, get yourself a nice suit and come back and see me. And it was like, he wanted to see if I was serious about it. Mm-hmm. It's like, you can't wear what you're wearing if you want to be in boardrooms and working with leaders in big organizations. Like, oh, okay. And so I went shopping and I went back. And I think that was the proof point for him that I was coachable and we hit it off. And all he did really, as I reflect on this, he never told me what to do. He never, and he could have. He was, he had tremendous experience, tremendous success in this world, and he never told me what to do. He would ask me, what do you want to do? What do you think are your options? And okay, what's the best one? And go. So it was like he taught me not just about my career path, but he taught me about coaching, So it was fascinating reflecting back on how he engaged. And it was all very, he was low key and it was unassuming. So the way that he engaged and the time that he gave me over the years, he was just so generous and so smart. And meeting him changed the trajectory of my life.
Yeah. I love that so much. And the reason I brought that up is because, like I said, like if you are a leader out there, manager, supervisor, anyone that wants to lead others or find yourself in that position where you're leading others, I think it's pivotal that you find someone or you attract someone into your world that can help you see the better version of you. And I think that's what all great mentors do, is that they don't necessarily tell you what to do. And that's what's crazy about it, is that like we want these answers, but they're not there to tell you the answers. They're there to help you discover them. And through their actions, through their philosophies, through their ways of thinking, you start to think and become like them in some way, shape, or form, but in your own version, I guess. And I think that's so powerful.
Yeah. And I mentioned, that's a recurring theme message in the book that as leaders, especially in an organization, and those are the folks that I wrote the book for, those are the folks that I work with 99% of the time, is we become addicted to being the problem solver and providing the answers. And every time we give somebody the answer, we disempower them a little bit because we're unconsciously or unintentionally sending the message, you can't figure this out, so I'm going to tell you the answer. Duke never did that, right? He never told me the answer. So it was always empowering me. You've got to figure this out. You're a grown man. You got to figure this out. You know the answer to this. You just got to think about it a little bit differently. And so that recurs throughout the book. I remind leaders that we're trying to make the shift from being, you're the one who has to do it. You're the hero that's going to swoop in and solve the problem and provide the answer. And that's the wrong approach. That approach is deadly if we're trying to keep people engaged and we're trying to empower people. So that's throughout the book. And that's, I go back to, I learned that from Duke. Don't give people the answer.
Yeah. And it's so powerful because I feel like we think it's easier to give the answer, but in reality, like you said, you're taking away their power because the discovery of that answer is where like immense fulfillment comes from. Immense curiosity and thought and leadership actually comes in that form of resistance where you're trying to figure out the solution. And once you do, you hang on to that because it's treasure, right? It's like, I learned the hard way. And I think learning anything the hard way, not that we all want to do that, right? Specifically around specific types of situations, but this is where you ask to understand, not to ask to simply solve the thing, whatever it is. And I think that's so powerful.
And providing the answer might be easier for the manager in the short term, but it exacts a cost over time. And it communicates the wrong message to your team member. I got to solve this for you because you can't figure this out. And this
is so powerful because it leads me to my next sort of question that you talk a lot about in your book, in the GR8 framework, which is great framework. Can you tell me just a little bit about the great framework and how you sort of developed it and, how leaders can use it to create meaningful coaching?
Yeah. So I've looked at a lot of different coaching frameworks and some of them are okay. But what I wanted to do is help people unlock their creativity and not just find the obvious solution, but find the optimal solution. And take somebody from an idea, so sorting through everything that's going on, right? So the first of the great coaching questions is what's going on? So you give somebody an opportunity to get it all out. Here's all the stuff in agile terms. Here's my backlog, right? Here's everything on my plate right now that I've got to figure out. And then focus them. Okay, well, what's most important right now? And then now that we're focused on of all that stuff, here's what's really keeping me up at night. Then it's okay, well, what's in your way? And moving them through a creative process of considering options and then evaluating each option in terms of its efficacy and usefulness in achieving that outcome that they've set for themselves. And it finishes with what in the old days, the International Coach Federation would call contracting for completion, right? That there's, okay, what are you going to do and when are you going to do it by? And a lot of coaching frameworks and a lot of coaches forget that part. We've had a nice conversation and we don't get to that. Okay, let's activate. So we've engaged, we've empowered. There was an empowering conversation where we looked at all the options. We came up with the best one. Now let's activate. What are you going to do? What's the best next step? So we move people to action. Every single coaching conversation should end with, what are you going to do? And what's the simplest, best next step, right? So you keep people moving. And so the great coaching framework was designed to help people move from idea to action.
Yeah, I think what's cool about it when I read through it in your book is that it's honestly pretty practical in putting these steps into formation, right? Like, I know I've learned a lot from you, and then really going into the details of how you implement these steps was pretty straightforward. There is no deep philosophical theory behind it. I mean, of course there is, but in the actual practical action of it through my teamwork, through my things that I got to do on a day-to-day, week-to-week, putting a process behind a framework is, I feel like it was so empowering. Even for me, I'm like, oh, I never really thought about how to do that, in a step-by-step process, And you kind of unraveled that for me while I was reading your book. So I wanted to mention it because it was really insightful. So thanks for really embedding that into your book so well.
What I think makes it great is that one of the things that a lot of leaders, when they push back on coaching more, because they think coaching takes a lot of time and it's going to slow things down.
Yes.
And you can ask the 8 questions in the coaching framework. When we run our Be a Great Coach program with inside organizations, we immediately get people practicing the great questions. And we intentionally give them only 10 minutes to coach someone using the framework, because we want to prove for them and we want their experience to prove to them that coaching doesn't take a long time. Right? That if you've never coached anyone before in your life, if you use these 8 questions that we've got that are in the book, in 10 minutes, you can coach someone. It doesn't take a long time. So it's, as a whole, it works and it doesn't take a long time. But also, they work independently, right? You can pull one question out. And by the way, I've been coaching for 25 plus years now, and I still reach for the great coach questions, the card. Because sometimes I've got a client, a person leader I'm coaching is swirling, and they're just, they're really stuck in that what's going on. They're just dumping everything about their current state at me.
Right.
And I'll just, okay, so of all of that, today, what's the best possible outcome? That's a lot. That I'm exhausted just hearing about all that stuff. Today, what's your best possible outcome? And that's the second question from the great coaching framework. So you can pull them out depending upon what you're hearing from the person that you're talking with, the person you're coaching, and say, wow, oh, that's a lot. Okay, well, so what must happen today?
Yeah.
Right? So you can pull them out independently. They're all terrific coaching questions, but when you string them together, the process is incredibly powerful.
No, it really is. And I think it's like the whole philosophy of just being in the present, right? Because there's not much you can do about the future and there's not much you can do about the past in this moment, right? Like just if you were to just take one action, maybe it's just like a nice, deep, long breath, right? Like just like exhaling what's happening and then being like, okay, from this perspective, what can happen today? And that's so empowering because that kind of, again, it brings you back to the present moment, brings you back to the controlling the moment, controlling your emotions and saying, okay, let's look at this logically and emotionally, but in a way that creates an impact for today. And I think that's really powerful, especially when people are around us looking up to us for
It reminds everybody, it reminds the person that you're coaching that they have agency because they can feel overwhelmed. A lot of the leaders that I work with feel overwhelmed all the time. The demands aren't going away, right? Tomorrow's not going to be easier. It's not going to be less work. It's going to be faster and more complex. And that's just the reality of business for a lot of people. So in the coaching moment, to remind people that they have agency is incredibly
Right.
powerful because
Yeah,
it makes
it
them then
really
the
is.
owner of their experience and the shaper of their results. And sometimes
Mm,
we need to jolt. It's like, okay, yeah, there's a
yeah,
lot going on. You have agency. So
yeah.
what do you want in the next hour or the next day or the next week? What choice do you want to make today that will make the rest of the day or the rest of the week easier for you?
So powerful. This actually leads into the next segue, which is trust is a recurring theme in your book. And obviously, there's no way in anything that we can lead anyone, even ourselves, without trusting our abilities, trusting our team, trusting that the work can get done. And I think trust is a vital piece. I mean, it's the bloodline of everything that you. I mean, it's literally it ran through your entire book, so it's like the
Yeah.
bloodline of your book. So, how does trust influence team performance, and what practical steps can leaders take to foster that within their teams?
Yeah. I mean, trust is table stakes, right? Hey, I need to trust myself. I need to trust my own ability and trust that I have what it takes in order to succeed in what I'm setting out to do. Without trust, there's no hope. So I have to trust I can figure this out. And so when I'm leading a team, I need to create an environment where people learn to trust themselves and learn to trust the people that they work with. Because that's, I think, the starting point for engagement. Because people don't engage their company. We talk about employee engagement. People don't engage to the company. People engage with their work, that they're fired up about their work, and they engage with other people. Right. So how do we help them to engage with their work and engage with other people? And so we have to, as leaders, we have to create an environment that leads people to trust more, that I trust that the people on my team are open to working with me. And I trust that the people on my team are sincere and honest when they're talking with me. And I trust
Mm,
that they are reliable. That if I ask them to do something by a certain date, that they're going to do it by a certain date. And I need to trust that they're competent, that what they give me is going to be good quality. And then mostly I need to trust that the people on my team have my back. So it's up to the leader to create the environment where it's easy for people to be trustworthy and experience the trust coming back at them from their colleagues. And that doesn't just happen. That takes the focus and the work of leadership to create those conditions where people trust one another, because without trust, there's no cooperation. And without
mm,
cooperation, there's no collaboration. And so it starts with trust. And so I see coaching, right? That's why one of the reasons I wrote the
yeah.
book, that coaching is a way that I can create that environment of trust within my team. And coaching is, if I show up as a coach, it's the way that I demonstrate to my team members that I am trustworthy as their leader,
Mm,
that I am in service of their success as the
yeah.
team. And they can trust that I am open to hearing from them, that I am reliable, I will be there for them, coach them when they need it. And that by showing up as a coach, I am loudly communicating to them, I trust you, right? The
Mm,
three most powerful words a leader can utter: I trust you. And when we show up as a coach, that comes across in our words and it comes across in our actions.
yeah. It's so empowering as well. Like, I know that you embody this to degrees I honestly have not seen in very many people. Because I work with you, I work alongside you to develop some online things for you. And the level of trust that you give me, the level of transparency that we have, with one another, it's so empowering. It makes me just want to show up on degrees and levels that make me feel very confident, that make me feel like I have creative outlet with your work as well, and that you trust my ability to make decisions that, again, only do nothing but good for both of our work, right?
Yeah.
And again, I'm just saying that because I experienced that from you personally. And I think when you talk about it in your book, you're actually sharing from experience, which is so empowering. Because I'll be honest with you, And not to disrespect anyone else I've ever met and talked to or about this specific topic. There's a lot of people who talk about leadership and have written great books about leadership. But sometimes when you get to work with them, it's like, are you embodying what you've written about? To be honest with you, like I've felt that on numerous occasions where I'm like, in this moment, what you're saying, what you're feeling, and what you're reacting to doesn't really align with what you've written about. And this doesn't make sense because here you are saying X, but you're actually acting like Y. And the level of trust is not there. You know, whether it's you don't trust me or whether you don't trust that or trust it or trust the process. And even while working with you to develop your book, you trusted that process so well. And again, I just want to share how much you embody that message because again, it comes through your book. It's almost emotional. So when I was listening to your book, I deeply resonated with that. And I'm like, this man is speaking directly from an experience. And I know that from experience. So I just want to give you a shout out there because it's not that common, unfortunately, for people to talk about leadership, but then embody the leadership things that they're talking about.
I appreciate that. Yeah, because you got to walk the talk. And leadership is as much about being as it is doing. It's who you
100%.
are. It's how you show up. And, ultra leadership is all about going beyond usual and ordinary. So usual and ordinary is phone it in, don't trust people. I want to inspire everyone to go above and beyond, to not be usual and ordinary. And so you have to extend trust. And if something happens where I extend trust to a team member and, they fall short in some way, it's on me. And this is in the book too. I have to provide feedback. So something's happened that is poking at or tearing the trust that we have. So I need to say something about it. Hey, I asked you to have this by Tuesday and it's Wednesday. Where is it? Right. And so that erodes trust. So we need to talk about it. And so, part of coaching is giving feedback when it's necessary to folks. But I want people to trust me and I need to extend trust. And so it's just a way of thinking, a way of being for me. It would be stupid for me to think that I deserve people's trust, but I'm not going to extend it to other people. That's crazy.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. But it's so empowering, man. And I think this leads me to my next sort of question, because this got me thinking about this when I was reading your book. The role of human skills versus hard skills. And I know this is very important right now, especially as we start doing a lot more remote work. Right, here we are recording a podcast episode, of course, over the internet. The most powerful thing I think that's ever happened to humanity is the internet because of the level of connections we have around the world. But it also, there's something about being in person. There's something about working with people in person, having that field of energy, right? But how do you, I know, again, you work with a lot of different organizations that some of them even deploy remote work, some of them deploy hybrid. How does one keep in mind human skills and hard skills where you emphasize the value of those human skills? Why are these skills crucial for leaders today? And how have they influenced your approach into how you coach these leaders who have to deal with these things that are sort of new and coming up in the last, I would say, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, so that's a great question because it's top of mind right now. And I love the fact that we talk about them as human skills now more than we used to. We used to call them soft skills.
Soft skills,
they weren't as important.
They were soft.
As hard skills. They're soft. They're squishy. So I love that we call them human skills. And I think they're more important now, especially when in today's work environment, we're fully remote or we're hybrid, or even if we're back in the office, that our job as leaders, if I've been given the privilege and responsibility to lead a team, it's really creating the conditions for those people to give their best all the time. And so I could have great business acumen. I could know the technology better than anything. But at the end of the day, I need to help another human being, another group of human beings, be their best and do their best. That's human skills. I need to know who I am, and I need to be able to connect with them individually and collectively. So that means I need to be really good at listening. I need to be really good at asking questions. I need to be really good at managing my own emotions and my responses to my emotions so that I can stay present to the people who I have a responsibility to serve as their leader.
Mm.
So the best teams are teams where the manager has tremendous emotional intelligence and is an amazing listener and asks great questions in order to coach people to own their situation, own their solutions, to shape their work so that they can achieve their best. And so there are, your vocational skills as you're a great marketer or you're a great engineer or you're a great, financial analyst. That's terrific. And that'll get you to a certain place. But I think that the more complex and the higher you go in your organization, you're going to find that more and more of your time is just taking care of people.
Yeah.
And that means you've got to develop those skills. You need to be emotionally intelligent. You need to be a good listener. You need to know how to ask good questions. So those are human skills that will benefit you everywhere, not just, when you're leading your team.
So well said. And I want to add to this, especially in the age of AI. I heard recently how Seth Godin approached it was that the more AI, the more human we have to be, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so true because yes, we have all these tools and technology and all these amazing things, but what are we trying to do with all these tools? Is we've got to make them sound more human, right? And so therefore that's the biggest clue there is that you can never get rid of the human spirit. And I think the more human you become in how you approach yourself and others, first and most importantly yourself and then others, I think is a reflection of how we move forward in the future in team culture, teamwork, and in general, just how we are led and how we like to be led, but also how we lead others. And I think the human element now has to be at the core of everything we do, not an outside thing, not a soft skill thing. There's nothing soft about being a human, personally, at least the way I see it, right? And I think that's really profound how you approach that in the book as well. It's great, man. I was listening to this book and I was sitting there like, man, this, not only am I going to send this to my team, right? For them as like a mandatory reading. Okay, you guys have to read this, right? We got to get on the same page. But more like to inspire them and to motivate them too, because I know one of my team members hired a freelancer to help her with her work. And that's fantastic, but we want to keep everyone in this mindset of like, all right, what are the components that we want to embed in our culture that we're building here at Rising Authors, And I love that so much. So thank you, man. You've given me so much to think about throughout your book. If you were to pull out, what is the big picture here? What do you hope readers take away from Coaching for a Change? And how do you envision this impacting organizations on a broader scale?
What I hope people take away from it is that they shouldn't shy away from leaning into coaching. It is a style and a way of leading that will actually make things easier for them. It'll free them up and it will unlock tremendous talent that is probably being muffled on their teams if they're still telling folks what to do. So if they're trying to drive higher engagement, if they want to empower people, if they want to move people to action, that the messages of this book and the tools that we provide in this book, and this is all stuff that I've learned over all the years that I've been doing this, that this will help them. And for the organization, right? So we talk about imagine the power of an organization where collective leadership capacity for coaching goes up, exponentially, that we all get better at coaching people. Then all of a sudden we have an organization where people are learning, people are engaged, people are empowered, people are, activated because we're taking serious our work of aligning people and building bench strength and making sure that all the activity is well coordinated. And coaching is a way that we can show up authentically as leaders and truly serve the people on our teams. And the title of the book, I'll close with this. The title of the book is actually a play on words. So it's Coaching for A in parentheses change, because coaching enables positive transformation. That's what coaching should do. It should accelerate somebody experiencing and having the change, making the change that they want to make, right? So coaching enables that positive transformation. But I also want people to try coaching for a change, right? So we coach for change, but I also want people to try coaching for a change, that we've gotten some bad ideas and some wrong ideas in our heads that, oh, coaching doesn't work or coaching takes too much time, right? And none of those things are true. And I want leaders to try coaching for a change because they've tried command and control. We've tried it for decades and decades. And why it may have worked when we're running an assembly line in a factory or, and that might have worked. But in most organizations today, it just doesn't work. It has a limited shelf life. And we need to empower people and activate people. And that's a more servant leadership mindset, that our organizations aren't machines. Our organizations are people, filled with people. And our job as leaders is to help those people on my team be their best and do their best all the time. And coaching, I think, is the better way to make that happen.
Greg, my friend, not only do you embody this message, but you are truly a wonderful coach, man. I mean, honestly, I say that because I've learned so much from you. And you live this work, you write about this work. This is your fourth incredible book. I mean, anyone out there, if you understood just how long it takes to write a book and how the process of publishing a book is, this man does it with grace. He does it with passion. And he genuinely, and I can honestly say this, genuinely cares about the people he's supporting and coaching. And I think, I'm so glad you leaned into this part of your life and passion and in the ways that you think, because I can only imagine the amount of people who have come across your path and have been impacted by your style of coaching that has been, a collection of other people's styles of coaching. And of course, infused with your personality, which makes it yours and unique. And I've learned a lot from you. I know other people have. I hope this episode has taught some people not only about you, your work, but I got the privilege and honor to take over your show today and ask you the questions. So thank you for having me. Greg Giuliano, Coaching for a Change. Go get the book right now. Don't sleep on it. I promise. It's a great read. And not only for yourself, but really for your team. I know I'm buying 10 copies and sending it out to my team.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Hey, before we end, tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me at rising-authors.com. If you're out there and you're interested in writing your own book, but first and foremost, definitely creating and building your audience as an expert in whatever it is that you're doing. If you're coaching, consulting, if you are a person that runs a small service that needs to attract people, or if you're a speaker out there, I help people like yourself get the online recognition and all those kinds of things, whether it's through YouTube, LinkedIn, or building your website. We do those kinds of things for people like you. Organically, that's the key here, to get people to come to you organically so that they want to work with you. So yeah, rising-authors.com. Happy to support and help.
Awesome. Thank you, man. And thank you for listening. This has been a special episode of Ultra Leadership. And if you want more doses of Ultra Leadership, we have a weekly newsletter on LinkedIn. And so find us on LinkedIn and you'll get our weekly newsletter there. And we've got an amazing YouTube channel that Hussein produces for us. And he makes me look awesome in all the videos that we post up on
Definitely
YouTube.
Check that out.
You can find our YouTube channel at Ultra Leadership. And again, I appreciate you all listening, and I appreciate your feedback and your comments about the podcast. We're building a community of ultra leaders, and we're all on the same journey, trying to get better together. So until next time, thanks. I'll see you on the trail.
Thank you, friends. Happy holidays. Peace.
If you're enjoying Ultra Leadership, please take a minute and give us a review wherever you find your podcasts. And please stay in touch. Sign up for our Ultra Leadership newsletter at ultraleadership.com. Now, before you jump to your next meeting, I invite you to reflect on what you heard today. What stood out for you? What insight might you want to incorporate into your leadership practice? Until next time, remember, as a leader, you always have the power to shape the future and change lives. So go to the edge and push farther. Thanks for listening.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.